Welcome to Walking Together, a podcast all about encouraging each other as we follow Jesus together. I'm your host, Dennis Lavelle. Let's start walking. I don't know about you, but where we live, it's been unseasonably warm for September. But today was full of fog and cooler temps. It's a sure sign that fall is on its way. And the fall season, the season of Thanksgiving, is so important to me because it makes me pause. And it's important to pause and reflect because all of us fall into the trap of wanting more. Now here's something you already know, but let me remind you of it. Whatever we have today, it's more than yesterday. And tomorrow, we will have more than we have today. But the problem is that when tomorrow rolls around, we'll continue to want even more. And part of that is because we live in a world where no one or nothing is perfect. And this is certainly true when we talk about marriage, because no one's marriage is perfect. You are imperfect, and you have either chosen or will choose to marry an imperfect person. So now there's two imperfect people living together. And then when you start adding kids into the mix, you have 2, 3 imperfect kids, maybe 4 imperfect or more. And that just seems to compound the problem because wanting more just seems like the right thing to do in an imperfect world. When we lose a loved one, we wish we had one more day with them. If we eat a giant piece of apple strudel with a big scoop of ice cream, and it was so good that we want just a little more, and our wives say no, well, that makes us want it all the more, doesn't it? And the big question is this: are we satisfied with what we have? And the answer is sometimes, for a while. Then we just begin to slide off the rails for a bit. Oh, if I only had another job. Or if I only had children who obeyed. If I only had a better computer. If I only had a car that didn't break down twice a month. If only my circumstances were different. If only I had another husband. If only I had another wife. If only I lived somewhere else. You get the picture, right? And it's when we become dissatisfied with what God has given us that we begin to look at other people and other things to fill that gap. Because our wife or husband or car or electronics just isn't filling that desire anymore. But really, it's not a problem with any of those things. It's a problem with our heart. And Jesus illustrates this for us in a very beautiful and gracious way. In John 4, we read about a woman who came to the well to draw water in the heat of the day. And what most people miss when they read this is the depth of verse 4. And John goes out of his way to make the statement that Jesus had to go through Samaria. Why? Well, put a pin in that and we'll come back to that. But he had a mission. And that mission was to have a face-to-face encounter with the lady whose life was totally upside down. Now, obviously, the Jews and the Samaritans didn't get along. But remember, they were sort of kind of family. When Israel was in captivity because of their disobedience, they intermarried with the Assyrians and the Samaritans. But Jesus starts up a conversation with this lady who was not only discriminated against, but who was rejected. She was not only rejected by her 5 previous husbands who didn't want her anymore, and we know this because in the Jewish culture, it was only the husband who could initiate a divorce. So she was rejected by her husbands, and now, because of all of that, she was rejected by her peers. And to make matters worse, what we know is that the 6th man that she's now living with didn't want to marry her. If he did, he would have done that already. Maybe he didn't want to deal with the potential disgrace of marrying her and then having to divorce her like the other 5 husbands before him. But Jesus makes it abundantly clear this lady was looking for more. Jesus addresses the issue of not having fulfillment in her life. And she wants to push back at first and wants to change the topic. Oh, you know that I've had 5 husbands. Well, you must be a prophet. Let's talk about religion. And she says, our ancestors worshipped here on this mountain, but the Jews, they say that worship has to be done in Jerusalem. And Jesus responds in a very gracious way, and he says, no, it's not about the where, but about the how and the who. That's the key to having a fulfilled life. Not more, but who. And once she realized who he was and what he offered her, she left her water pot and ran back to the city. And she said, come on. I want you to meet someone who told me everything I've ever done. Is this not the Christ? And the question was rhetorical. And what happened? Well, the inhabitants of the city came to check it out. And the end result was that many of the Samaritans believed because of the woman's testimony. You see that in verse 39. And for those who were still skeptical, Jesus hung around for another 2 days answering the questions, and then many more believed. This is why Jesus had to go through Samaria. People's hearts were yearning for more. And because he's a gracious God, he gave them more than they ever hoped for, an eternal relationship with the Father. So take a moment today to ask yourself, where's my focus right now? Have I fallen into the trap of always wanting more? Am I thankful for what I have? How's my relationship with the who, the one I'm supposed to be worshiping? And only you can answer that. You see, regardless of your circumstances, whether you feel like you're being accepted or rejected by your peers, your family, or your coworkers, you don't need more affirmation by other people. What you need is more of him. You need to pause and drink a cup of refreshing water from the well of living waters. Remember who you're worshiping. Stop striving for more stuff, more acceptance, more relevance, because it's not about you. John says it this way, I must decrease, and he must increase. You need more of him. Well, thanks for joining today. I hope it's been encouraging to you. Read that account of the woman at the well and let that come alive for you. Share the podcast with a friend. We always love hearing feedback. Stay encouraged in your walk with the Lord. We'll see you next time.